Hello and welcome to Learning Music with Pat. You know, children always get excited about learning a new instrument and they want to have fun with it and they want to play with their friends. And you know, they go to the parents and they say, well, I want to learn how to play trumpet, I want to learn how to play flute, or whatever it is they want to learn how to play. And what do the parents always say to them? If I get you an instrument, will you promise to practice it every day? Oh yeah, I'll practice every day, just like when you're getting a puppy. Will you feed it every day? Will you take care of it every day? And so that's the way it goes. Are you going to play every day? Are you going to practice every day? And most children aren't too crazy about the practice part because they're sitting there with their instrument trying to play, making their mistakes, playing over and over and over again. And so what I want to tell you is that I don't want new students practicing very much. I don't want them practicing a lot. And the reason is this: if they're playing brass or woodwinds, they don't have a fully developed embouchure. Now, what is an embouchure? An embouchure is the muscles around your mouth. If I pick up this instrument and I put it in my mouth, I put it about a third of the way, and what my muscles are doing around it is my embouchure. Now, children or new students don't have a healthy embouchure. They haven't had a chance to develop it yet. And so therefore, the embouchure is going to get tired and weak. The muscles are going to get tired and weak. And the best thing you can do is, if you're tired, if you feel like there's a strain on your muscles, I don't mean your whole body, but a strain on your muscles, stop. And don't practice for a while. You're not going to get any better by trying to force yourself to do something that your lips don't want to do because they're too tired to do it. But you do need to have a practice schedule. So this is what I would suggest. A child who wants to have a child who wants to learn has got to promise to do some practicing, but it doesn't mean they have to do a half an hour a day. Everyone says, oh yeah, I practice a half an hour every day when I get home from school. There's nothing magic about practicing a certain amount of time. It's how you use your time in the practice session that's going to get you the best results. Sitting down and supposing I'm playing and I hit this F sharp and it's not supposed to be an F sharp, but I do it every time I practice, when it's supposed to be something else, what I have done is I'm practicing my mistake. Pretty soon, I have a muscle memory, and that mistake is always going to be played because it's in my muscle memory. What you need to do when you first start to practice, and I do this with kids all the time and teach them how to do it. First off, you have to warm yourself up, and you have to warm the instrument up. Now, if you're playing something like saxophone or clarinet, the single-reeded instruments, you need to take the reed off from the mouthpiece or wherever you're keeping it. Some people put the mouthpieces and reeds right on the instrument and keep them there. And other people take the reed off the mouthpiece and put it in a little container made for it. It doesn't matter really what you do. It's, I think, more or less a case of personal preference. But take the reed, put it in your mouth, and just keep it there to absorb the moisture. Reeds need to be moist to work. Then after a few minutes, when you have the reed moist, then you put it back on the mouthpiece, put it together again, put the ligature on, screw it in like it's supposed to be, and then blow into the mouthpiece. Now, I saw a young girl who was learning how to play the saxophone, and she was warming up her instrument before a concert that we were in. And she blew her mouthpiece and in her mouthpiece, but she then never attached it to her saxophone, which means she had warmed up her mouthpiece, but not the whole instrument. You really want to have the whole instrument warmed up. So after you warm up the mouthpiece, attach it to the instrument, put the mouthpiece on, and blow into the instrument and get the whole instrument warm. The moisture in your breath will help to keep it warm. The instrument should always be kept at room temperature. Do not put it on a hot windowsill or something like that, where it's going to get much too much heat and it's going to damage the reeds, it's going to damage the pads. Don't do that. Don't put it in deep into a cold closet where it's going to get much too cold, or even in an attic or a cellar. A cellar is apt to be much too moist, and you can damage the instrument. Take the instrument and keep it in room temperature, like in a living room or a dining room or something like that. Have a place that you keep it. Keep it in its case, because that's going to protect it from falling off a card table or wherever you want to put it. Warm up the reed, warm up the mouthpiece, put it on the instrument, and then blow into the instrument and just keep it coming a little at a time. It doesn't have to be lots of air, it has to be some air. Let it get warmed up. And then try to play a scale with it. You know, if you're playing a scale, then you're getting your fingers in motion, and you're warming up your fingers, and you're warming up the joints, and that's a good thing to do. And also what you should be doing is practicing something called holding tones. Holding tones are a pain in the you-know-where, because they're just as boring as toast. But you really need to do it, because what you're doing is you're strengthening your diaphragm, you're strengthening your lungs, you're able to take air in and out of your lungs better, your tone for the instrument is going to improve, your ability to sustain notes and hold notes for longer periods of time is going to be sustained, it's going to be better, and you're going to be able to breathe better. It's just a good thing to do. So you would take a note and you would blow it and keep it going and keep it going and keep it going. A steady sound, not up and down, but a steady sound as long as you can. Now that might only be for a few seconds. As you do it more and more, you're going to get more strength, and you're going to be able to do it for longer and longer periods of time. And that's going to be better. And then you go ahead and you start practicing. So supposing I want to practice a song, I have it in front of me. What I should do is start slow. I'll use the song that I have here that I used in the last session. So just as an example, it's handy, so I'll use it. So I would start practicing slow, and when I practice slow, and that's really slow. The song isn't meant to be that slow, but I don't care how slow it's meant to be or how fast it's meant to be. Start off slow. And the way that the reason for doing that is so you know that you've got every note right. If you haven't got every note right, don't keep on going. Stop at the end of that measure and go over that measure again. So I'm going to put this back where it was, and then I'll point this out to you. So you're starting slow, and you look at the treble clef. You know you're playing an instrument that's a treble clef instrument. You know the timing is 3/4, and you're going to look at it, and you're going to look at the notes. Do you know the fingerings for those notes? Yeah, okay, you do. So therefore, it's safe to continue. If not, you have to check on the fingerings and make sure that you get the fingerings right. And you play it slowly. 1, 2, 3. And you play one measure at a time. Supposing you have trouble with this measure, this is an F sharp. Supposing you miss that and you play an F natural, well, don't keep on going. Stop and play this again with the F sharp, the way it should be. You always look at the key signature and the time signature to make sure that you're playing it right anyway. Once you get that and you got that straight, then you play the second measure doing the same thing. And then you play both measures together. Once I've got that one, it's ready for me to start this one. And once I get this one, I can put the two together and I can play both of them, and they both will be right. Then I add the third one, which won't be hard, it's just one note, but I still am going to play it. And then this one I'm going to play as well, and then they get added to the bunch. The problem with most people when they're practicing is they're practicing their mistakes, and they're doing it as fast as they can. Okay, so I'm going to put the F natural in, which is a mistake. It's not supposed to be that way. It's supposed to be an F sharp. Now already it doesn't sound right. what's the matter with it? I haven't got that right. It doesn't sound right. Oh, well. And so I go over it, and I go over it, and I go over it, and I've practiced and memorized my mistake. Once I've memorized my mistake, it's going to happen. It's much better to get it right to begin with than try to undo something that you have already done or that you've already learned. Now, if you're a beginning student, your lips are going to get tired easily, and they're going to feel sore, maybe a little lame, maybe a little tired. I mean, it's not actual pain that you're going to have, but you're going to be uncomfortable. And you may only play for a minute or two, and all of a sudden your lips feel kind of wonky, they feel kind of queasy. Stop at that point and don't continue. The reason being is that you're not going to make your lips stronger or better by trying to force them to hold a position that's not natural for them, which is the reason that they're feeling tired to begin with. Just don't do it. Stop for a while. And when you stop for a while, what you can do is something else. Read a book. Do a puzzle, but let those lips rest. And then later on, when they're rested, start again. And when they get tired again, stop again. I do not want beginning students to be hassled by not playing very long, because I do not want beginning students who are unfamiliar with an instrument, unfamiliar with how that embouchure is supposed to work. I don't want them to get tired and feel like they've got to push on, push on, push on. You don't have to push on. Your lips and your body will catch up with you as you get stronger and as you get better. And then you'll naturally play for longer periods of time. When you're tired, stop. And someone will say, yeah, but I can only play for 2 minutes. That's okay. You can only play for 2 minutes. And when you keep practicing a little bit at a time, gradually it'll increase to 4 minutes or 5 minutes. The other thing I want to mention for people who love to play different instruments, and I'm one of those people, you should not, if you're playing woodwinds, play brass, or you should not, if you're playing brass, play woodwinds. And the reason for that is the embouchures are just different enough that if you play one embouchure and you try playing a brass instrument, supposing I'm playing clarinet, and I decide I want to play trombone, it's going to weaken my embouchure for the clarinet because different muscles are used and they're in different positions. And you can really destroy an embouchure and be back to square one because you tried an embouchure that wasn't natural for you because it's on a different type of instrument using different types of muscles. So you really need to be careful. It's not good to play brass and woodwind. I know some people do it and they can do it successfully, but that's not very many people that can do that. It does harm an embouchure. If you're a new student and you want to play like a clarinet or a flute, stick to the clarinet or the flute. Now, some of the instruments are similar. Saxophone and clarinet, you're not going to have much trouble switching back and forth. The embouchures are about the same. The size of the mouthpieces are different, but what the muscles do is about the same. Or if you're playing trumpet and trombone, that may not be a problem either, because basically the mouthpieces are the same shape, and you can get away with it. But if you want to go from trumpet to clarinet, or flute to trombone, now, that's going to be a problem because the embouchures are too far different. So you need to stick to what embouchure you like, what embouchure you're going to use, and just stick with that until it's well solidified. Then if you want to add another instrument, you can experiment around with it. But usually you're better off doing saxophone, clarinet, oboe, bassoon, and flute. Those are the basic woodwind instruments. And then you also, the recorders, the song flutes, the tonettes, the penny whistles, they're all kind of the same. I can pick up an instrument. I can pick up a penny whistle, a song flute, a tonette. I can pick up the recorders, different sized recorders, doesn't matter, doesn't bother me a bit. And I can practice for a few hours on them and switch back and forth. But the mouthpieces are similar enough that you're not straining your embouchure. Once it gets stronger and once you can handle an instrument, you can add other instruments to it. You just don't want to do it all at once when you're just beginning. When you're just beginning and you find yourself getting tired, you just lay off for a while and get back to it later. And there's no shame in that. You can't force yourself to be a better player by straining your lips for something they cannot do. People don't understand that. Well, I should be able to play for a half an hour. Not if your lips are not untrained, not if they're not used to holding a certain position, because there's a different position. When you put an instrument in your mouth, you curve the ends of your mouth, you change the position of the muscles, and then your muscles have to get used to that. That's not an easy thing. But as you go on and on, it becomes easier and easier. So that you need to remember. Also, if you're new, you're going to get confused because you're going to need to check your embouchure many times to make sure that it's right. Supposing I'd never picked up a recorder before and I didn't know how to play it. Well, I stick it in my mouth. How does that work? Well, maybe not good enough. What am I supposed to do? Well, I'm supposed to do this and that and the other. And then as I'm playing it and I'm a beginner, I really need to check and make sure that my embouchure is doing what it's supposed to do. So may need to stop and check it. I may need to feel around and make sure. One thing you should not do is when you're playing an instrument, to watch yourself play in a mirror is not good, because your mirror is going to reverse things. And so therefore, what appears to be right is going to be on the left and so forth. You'll have a problem like that. So don't watch yourself play. But if you want to check, take the instrument out of your mouth. Are my fingers in the right position? Yeah, I guess so. You can feel them. When you're playing a woodwind instrument that has open tone holes, as the recorder does, you can feel where the tone holes are, and you can feel whether your fingers are in the right position. I don't have to stop and look. And as a beginning student, you might have to stop and look once in a while, but you'll soon get out of that habit because it'll be natural for your fingers to go right where they're supposed to go. Remember, you're training your fingers too. And you don't play flat. You don't play with flat fingers. That's a very bad habit to get into. You just don't do that, because what's going to happen is you can't get your notes right. You need to curve your fingers. And piano players, it's the same thing for piano. Curve your fingers above the keyboard, but close enough to the keyboard that if you need to put a finger down quickly, you can get it down quickly and you won't miss it. The same is true for woodwinds. Hold your, like if I'm going to be playing a G, and I'm not going to be playing any below a G, I'm still going to hold my fingers curved like this, because supposing an F shows up, or an F sharp shows up, or a D shows up, I need to get my fingers down, and the pads of your fingers are going to be in the holes, right? Because you can feel the holes, so you can feel where it's recessed, and you can put your fingers down right. But not if they're like this, or up like that. So you need to keep your hands in a certain position so that you can move them quickly into the right position as you have need of it. And the mouthpiece, now, I just did that off the top of my head, but I had my hands in the right position so I could do it. I'm not fighting to find out where the notes are. I know where they are. I've played for long enough time. I have my hand in the right position, so I want to throw in an F sharp, or I want to throw in an F natural on a Baroque instrument. I can do that easily. It's not a part of a problem. But when you're just learning, you have to take it slow and steady, and give yourself patience and give yourself time. That's something that you have to do. Rest when you need to rest. And more advanced students don't need to rest as much, and they can play longer, and that's a good thing. It will come. You don't have to be afraid of its coming. The other thing that you need to learn right away is how to tongue. Tonguing is critically important, because if I play an instrument and I'm not tonguing, I have no definition of the tone. If I'm tonguing, I'm tonguing all of those notes. But if I wasn't, and it doesn't sound good because the notes don't blend well with each other. They run into each other. Each note needs to be distinct. And for most of the time that you're playing, you're not slurring. You're actually playing and tonguing each note. That means one of the first things I have to teach students is how to do that. And how to do that is that you put the instrument in your mouth about a third of the way. And then, when you're playing a note, you bring your tongue up and you touch in the inside of your mouth. You touch that. That's in the inside of your mouth, because your mouth is over this, and you just touch that with your tongue. So you're saying to yourself, ta, or ti, or ta, or something like that. Now, there are times when you need to slur, when you need to go from one note to the other without tonguing, and that would be written in the music. There will be a sign for that. There would be like an arch, a line that forms like an arch between them, between the notes, and you know that you're going to slur and you're not going to tongue. But most notes are going to be tongued, so you can get a good, clear note. So that's something to remember. And also remember, if you have trouble with a song, play it measure by measure by measure. When you get it right, add another measure, put it all together, and play 2 or 3 measures at a time. I can see that I'm beginning to run out of time. I feel like I've just barely begun here. So it will get better and better with time. Be patient with yourself. Check to make sure your embouchure is right. Check to see that you can tongue. That's going to make all the difference in the world as to what your music is going to sound like. And then learn what the signs are. That'll come with time. You learn a little bit at a time. So I'm going to close it here. I didn't realize I had run out of time that fast. So I'm going to close it here. I may continue with this next time to give you a good experience. Remember, practicing is an art. And you can learn a lot in a relatively short period of time if you do it right. So you won't be just playing the same thing over and over and over and learning your mistakes and getting nowhere. So I'll probably will continue this next time. So I'm going to close it here. Please join me next time.